Good morning. Name's Rain. I wanted to make a tool list for electrical apprentices because I've been watching a lot of other well-meaning electricians' tool lists on YouTube, and they do give a lot of important tool advice, but I feel like what most of them miss is that they're not giving them in order of importance and factoring in the possibility that maybe the apprentice they're talking to doesn't have unlimited capital to go and spend on drills and impact drivers and things such as that. So I wanted to give a list in order of what you should have starting on day one, and then the things that you can build up to over a period of several paychecks, several weeks, and then things that you could splurge on, a couple months into it just to flex on the employer and show you that you're really committed to the job. So I'm going to go over the things that you should have in your bag as soon as you show up first. And then at the end, I'm going to throw in a couple of tools that you probably shouldn't even bother ever getting just because they're so situational and you'll have so many other alternatives already in your bag that you don't have to worry about it. So starting out with day one. All right, before we'll even get into tools, we'll talk about a couple of things that you need to have, even if you're not an electrician. Doesn't matter what trade you're in, you need to have something to mark with, whether it's a permanent marker or a little clicky pencil or a colored pencil. It doesn't matter. What's going to happen is your electrician is going to walk up to you and say, "Hey, bud, you got something I can mark with?" And you could give him a crayon and he'll be fine. Just as long as you got something to mark with, because he's too poor to afford anything to mark with himself. Second thing is some kind of knife, whether it's a box blade, razor knife, pocket knife, doesn't matter. Something to cut things like plastic, pallet wrap, cardboard, things such as that. And then a voltage detector. This is not a tool, but it'll ensure that you'll live to use your tools for many years to come. If there is a possibility that something is live on the project that you're working on, you need to make sure you turn off the breaker. And sometimes something might have gotten miswired. You never can tell. You never need to leave things to chance and possibility and hopes and dreams. Use one of these whenever you think that the wire or the device that you're working on has been turned off to make sure that it is off. If you hear that beeping noise and you see this green turn to red, then there's a flaw in the slaw, as Roscoe P. Coltrane would say. So get in the habit of using these every time you start to work on something. All right, so any tool list worth its weight in cardboard is going to tell you that the first tool you need to get is a pair of lineman's pliers or side cutters, whatever the regional dialect is for these, steamed hams. But I will tell you that you get what you pay for with these, because if you go and buy a $10 pair of Fisher Price Mommy's First side cutters, you're going to have a rough go with it, because it feels like with a lot of these, the leverage seems to be tied directly to the price, because if you go and spend the dollar store amount on a pair of side cutters, you'll go and try and cut one single wire and you'll put all the pressure on the handles and it just won't cut. So I would say invest in a good, not necessarily expensive pair of these, but a good name brand pair of side cutters, so that you're not out there struggling to try and cut one wire. Second thing is a pair of strippers. But be careful with the pair of these that you get, because there are some that I believe are designed to drive you bonkers. There is a type of stripper that has this little lock on it. And this lock will swing shut at the worst, most inconvenient times. If you've got 10 wires that you've got to strip and you're trying to mow through all of them real quick, that lock will slam shut, and it doesn't take too long to get that lock to unlock. But it's just so extremely frustrating to have that lock swing shut. And then there's also that spring on it. This pair, which I like because it doesn't have the lock on it, I cut the spring out of it. It's not a safety feature. The spring is not some sort of safety device. The lock is not for safety either. It's just put there by stripper designers who have never actually used a pair of strippers in the field before and think they're doing you a service. Get a pair of strippers that does not have the lock on it. It's fine if it has the spring on it. You can cut that off, because you don't want the strippers to be sitting in your bag like this. It's going to wind up cutting something. Get you a pair of wire strippers. Third thing is your screwdrivers. You only need one Phillips head, just one singular Phillips head. People will tell you, that you might want to get more than that, because you might want to get one that's got a big head on it, or it's got a little square end on it, and that's fine. You can invest in one of those later, but at the start, you only need one Phillips head, but you do want two flathead screwdrivers. One that's a big one to be able to get big flathead screws, and then one small one for things like device covers, like switch plate cover or receptacle cover. What we call these tweakers, just a little thin flathead. You'll use these for a lot of devices and inside of panels and things. And then the other screwdriver that you want to get, and this is just a quality of life screwdriver, a little stubby screwdriver that's like 3 inches tall. They oftentimes come as multi-stubbies where you can pull the thing out and it'll be flathead or Phillips head or whatever. And this one is especially bougie because it ratchets. So this is something that you're going to use if you're, up in a little small box or in a tight space. These are delightful to have. You'll love these. Then you've got your nut drivers for hexagonal nuts. A multi-driver is the best thing to have because it only takes up one little small spot in your bag. But if you can't find a good multi-driver, then get a kit of them and keep that in your truck. But this one is nice because it goes all the way from 3/16 up to 9/16. So if you can get one like that, order it on Amazon. These things are phenomenal. Your channel lock pliers. You want 2 of these because oftentimes you're going to be working on conduit fittings. That's the most common use for channel locks for an electrician is conduit fittings like couplings and connectors and whatnot. And you're going to want to have opposing force on either side of it as you're tightening it so that you can tighten it 2 ways. This will ensure, having 2 of these will ensure that you're going to get the thing as tight as you possibly can. If you just go in there with one set and hold it with your hand on the other side, you're not going to be able to get it tight. You might get it snug, but it's not going to be tight enough to withstand a fish tape being pulled through it. So get 2 sets of these. And it doesn't have to be humongous, but you don't want it to be the size of a letter opener either. These are Channel Locks brand, so 430s. It doesn't necessarily have to be Channel Lock brand. Just get you 2 of these that are fairly large. A hammer. You want to have a hammer. I've got a sledge. This is a little mini sledgehammer because I work in commercial and industrial, and we don't often have to pull nails out of boards, so I really don't need a claw hammer. But just a hammer of some kind. The hammer that's in the garage. Borrow one from your mama. Just any type of hammer. Something to fram with is fine. Something to throw at your coworkers. Don't throw them at your coworkers. I'm being facetious. A tape measure. I suggest a 30-footer. You're not going to use a tape. You can get a 20-footer, and you'll probably never pull it all the way out to the full extent of it. But get you a tape measure, and then pull it out and write your name somewhere at about a foot or 2 feet in, so that people don't steal your tape measure. And then a level, because if you're putting up a panel or conduit up a wall or something and you don't have a level, it's going to be obvious that you didn't have a level when you were installing it. Please have a level of some kind. It doesn't have to be much. It doesn't have to be anything special. Just make sure it's magnetic so that it sticks to the set of conduit. It doesn't have to be the fancy illuminated ones. It can just be a little 6 or 8 inch torpedo level. And then the last thing is tape. A roll of tape. You're really only going to be using this to bundle wires together, so you don't have to go all out and get the Super 33 or Super 88. Just get a roll of tape. That's day 1. That's all you have to have. Marker, knife, induction tester, side cutters, strippers that do not have the little locking mechanism on them. 1 Phillips head, 2 flat heads, 1 stubby screwdriver, 2 sets of channel locks, a tape measure, a level, and a roll of tape. That's day 1. That's all you have to have. Now for the stuff for the coming weeks. All right, now for the stuff that honestly you don't really have to have as an electrical apprentice, but you buy this kind of stuff to flex on your employer and show them I'm here and I'm committed and I'm doing the job to the best that I can. Starting off with a drill. I've already said that a drill, you really don't have to have it unless you're just using a hole saw to cut through metal or sheetrock or wood. But get a drill just in case you have to do that because it's valuable to have. A meter. Your electrician should be the one using a meter and not you, but it's good to have a meter anyways because your electrician might not be around, or maybe he doesn't know how to use a meter. Use the little manufacturer's booklet that comes with these and learn how to use it, learn what all the little symbols mean and what all the little settings do so that you don't damage your meter whenever you're trying to use it and don't know what you're doing. And they do vary from brand to brand, so know how to use the specific meter that you have. A ratcheting set of cable cutters are very good to have whenever you're working on big wire for a switchgear or for a main distribution panel. You can't cut that stuff with a pair of side cutters. It's too big. It's big around as my thumb or even bigger. So have a pair of ratcheting cable cutters. That's a nice thing to have. And now we can start getting into the situational stuff that you probably don't need to get, like a 2-foot torpedo level. That way you can make sure that your torpedoes are level. The little 8-footer or 8-incher that you have will suffice most of the time, but if you need to level something that's big, The 8-inch torpedo level will tell you if it's level. This is just kind of there to, it's a security blanket to make you feel like you've got it even more level. The 8-inch isn't lying to you, but people use this because superstition, I guess. Honestly, that's what I think it is. A big set of channel locks. You don't have to have these unless you are specifically working on 4-inch EMT or 3-inch EMT, something that is humongous that your little channel locks will not tighten. Imagine your superintendent standing there next to a big old run of 4-inch EMT and thinking, man, I just don't think we're going to be able to tighten this. And then you go and get these from your truck, and oh my goodness, everybody's looking at you now. The paparazzi's insane. It's just good to have a set of these because, oh my goodness, you come out with a pair of these, and everybody's going to be looking at you. Roto split. You don't have to have this unless you're specifically working on metal clad cable. And even then, most people won't use these because they'll use a pair of side cutters, because you can work with metal clad cable without having to use a roto split. It's still nice to have, but I wouldn't use it. A heat gun. You only use a heat gun, a battery powered heat gun, if you're working on small PVC conduit to be able to heat it up to bend it, because you heat up PVC to bend it. And this thing will chew through a battery very fast. But, having one of these makes you look like an evil scientist coming out there, holding up your heat gun. A fish tape. Your company should have a fish tape. You probably don't need to have one, but it's still nice to have, and still a huge flex to come out with one of these. There will be a big debate about whether or not you need a metal one or a fiberglass one. You only use a fiberglass fish tape if there is a possibility that you are pushing into an energized panel. I don't want you pushing a fish tape into an energized panel. Make sure that there is no chance the pipe that you're pushing into goes into an energized panel, and you should be fine to use a metal fish tape. What else have we got here? A conduit bender. Conduit benders are purely a vanity item because your company should be providing conduit benders, but a good 3/4 or 1/2-inch bender will have a steel head. Do not buy the ones with the flimsy aluminum head because they will crimp the conduit that you're trying to bend. This takes up a lot of space, but it's quite nice to have one of these. A bandsaw. 9 times out of 10, you'd rather use a bandsaw than a hacksaw because this cuts things exponentially faster, but they're also a lot more expensive. This tiny bandsaw here cost me $250, but I use it every day. You do not want to get a corded bandsaw. There will be plenty of corded bandsaws, and you'll be looking all over the shelves trying to find a battery-powered one. You're an electrician. You're going to be on a job site before the power is ever turned on, so why would you get a corded bandsaw? What are you going to plug it into? And then the stuff that you just don't have to have, like crimpers. Your electrician should have crimpers. Unless you know that you are going to be working in like PLC cabinets or lift station cabinets or putting on fork connectors and ring connectors, you don't need one of these. This will sit there and rust. Mine is a little less rusty because I recently worked in a lift station cabinet, so you don't have to have these. And oftentimes you can just get a pair of side cutters that has that little crimping head inside of it, so don't have to have those. Needle nose pliers. If you can figure out a use for these, fantastic, because I can't. They're so rusty because I just never use them. They've been in my bag now for 6 years, and I have not used these once. I hate these things. I hate that other people use them because I can't figure out how to use them. I just don't know what they're for. And then the bane of my existence. Some people might have been surprised that I did not include these in the very beginning of the video. These wire cutters are worthless. There will not be a single situation where you will cut a wire or a zip tie or anything with one of these instead of a pair of side cutters, which you'll already have in your back pocket. There is no reason to buy these. There is no reason for them to manufacture these. They are completely worthless. I've never used them. I cannot figure out what they're for. Don't buy these. Another thing that you just don't need to get is a Sawzall. These things are more dangerous than they are worth. I don't use these. Yes, I own one, but that doesn't mean that you should, okay? They don't have anything securing the blade on this other end. So anytime you're trying to cut something, the blade is flopping all around, and you can put your hand way the heck over there, but that doesn't mean it's not going to bind up on what you're cutting and kick back and knock your safety glasses off. Don't get a Sawzall. These things are horrible. And then lastly, this is something that you don't have to get, but it definitely it'll definitely turn some heads whenever you show up with a Racketeer set of Pro Jacks or jack stand or something to put wire on to be able to pull it. It makes absolutely no sense for you to buy one of these, and people will think you're crazy, but they'll also think you're definitely committed to being an electrician. So if you want to get a set of these and stick them somewhere, I don't know where you put them, but if you can figure out a way to wedge them in with all the other tools that you've got in the bed of your truck or in the trunk of your car, then sure, yeah, go ahead and splurge on that. All right. Tools are how you make your money in any skilled trade. And the more of them you have, the better suited you are to do your job. The tool list that I've given you is ordered in order of importance, with the most important stuff at the very beginning and the crappy stuff at the end. But the more tools you have, the better you look as an employee. So definitely invest in your tools. Invest in your tool bag. Make sure that you've got something nice to be able to contain them all in, something that the jab saw isn't going to poke right through the side of. And let me know if I'm stupid and missed a very obvious tool that everybody should have. Because I don't think I did. I think I've done a pretty good job with this.